Hello, everybody. I'm Sheila Kamara Hay, and I am so excited today to talk about something that I've been seeing happening really strongly in the birth world, which is when you can't give hands-on support, when you cannot be in the room with your client, how do you connect energetically and have your virtual birth support be as powerful, if not more powerful, than your real life hands-on touch. So today I'm joined by Romy Finbow, who is a doula based in the UK, and she's also in the Ecstatic Birth practitioner training. And Romy's situation is very special because she had a packed client roster for March and April, and then pandemic hit, self-quarantine, social distancing, and so she has been able to very successfully transition her work into a virtual realm, doing virtual prep and virtual birth support. So welcome, Romy. I'm so excited to have you here today and to share your experiences with us.
Thank you so much, Sheila. It's such an honor to be able to share these experiences, and hopefully for those doulas and birth workers out there who haven't yet been able to support someone during childbirth as yet during this pandemic, I hope that it will give a little bit of confidence, because these experiences have been really special in ways that I'd never imagined.
That's amazing. And I think it's exactly what people need to hear right now. And I think also for our expectant moms, they need the support more than ever. So I would love to just have you begin by sharing some of your experiences. What has it been like to support birth in a virtual way?
Of course. Well, I've supported 3 births now since the beginning of the pandemic, and I'd done a little bit of remote doula work in the past, but not very much. And so this situation, as you'd mentioned before, was always going to be busy for me in March and April. I had an unusually busy month, lots of spring babies. So I'd sort of set up, backup doulas, and I'd made sure that I had a bit of space in between each client, and we started preparing as we usually would, and then as the situation started to unfold, and we realized that this was having an impact, not just on everyone globally, but sort of specifically on maternity care, and every day there seemed to be changing guidelines. So yeah, the first client that I was working with, we'd already done a lot of face-to-face preparation, and I think, as you've discussed in previous conversations with other doulas, really the preparation is just so key. And so in that sense, I'd been quite lucky to have some face-to-face contact with them. And we'd already done a lot of work with the partners as well, working out different positions, talking about the physiology of birth, giving that sort of educational focus that we would always do anyway. And then really sort of starting to feel into the body as well. So integrating a lot of the Ecstatic Birth practitioner training modules into the work, which has just totally transformed the way that I work in so many ways. But really getting these mothers to be, all of them first-time mothers, to really feel into the sensations in their body. And they were all quite different clients and responded to that in different ways. But we were really sort of working on that personal level. So as the situation sort of came to light that I wouldn't be able to be there with them in the hospital, that was sort of the first stage. So we sort of quickly adapted and thought, okay, so these are the options, and just laid them out. And I really left it to my clients in the end to sort of say what felt good for them. And they all said they'd still love to have the support, and it wasn't ideal, but they were flowing with it, which was wonderful. And then it came to a decision of having to either sort of be there with them in person at their homes, or to do what my family were asking me to do, because I've got a compromised immune system myself, really even sort of going to those clients' homes was something that my family really didn't want me to do. And it's a really hard decision as a doula to have to make that decision, but all of my clients were really supportive of that. And then sort of lockdown came in anyway. So I'd prior to that spent as much time as possible with them, and their partners became a lot more engaged. We spent a lot of time with them, just building their confidence as well.
Yeah.
And it was just and so leading up to the birth itself, I felt like I had a lot more connection with both the mothers to be and their partners.
So I know there's like so much more to go, but I just want to know. So you feel like because you were aware that you might not be able to be there live, you prepared them even more, and even more so the partner than you normally would.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you were able to have like a stronger connection with the couple in general.
Absolutely. And I would hope to have that anyway in any scenario. But I think it was particularly important because I suddenly saw that the partners were far more, they wanted to delve in further. They wanted to really, they were watching every movement. They were really sort of hanging on every word. And it was really touching to see. And we were already creating that sort of oxytocin flow in the space, both when I was with them physically and when I then started working remotely. And really seeing them engage on that level was wonderful. And seeing the women really sort of understand that they had this inner knowing and this innate knowing and this trust in their bodies. And we talked a lot about how actually this situation and the fact that the guidelines were changing by the day, actually, really thinking about this idea of dancing with the unexpected, which comes into your training, and which has been a really revolutionary aspect of the training for me personally. And I've been able to see how my clients have responded to that as well. But really sort of already before the birth even takes place, they're already having to just dance with these sort of unanticipated elements of it, and not being able to just cling on to one plan, but really to have that flexibility and that belief that whatever unfolds is meant to be. And that really, that understanding that we talk about a lot in the training, which I think has been one of the biggest learnings for me, and which has become very tangible for my clients, is this idea of every contraction leads to an expansion. And not just in the space of childbirth, but also in the lead up to that, in that journey towards motherhood, that personal growth. And I think that really helped them to take each day as it came.
So can I ask you about a piece of that for you personally? How did you feel like as a doula, knowing that you couldn't be there in person, that you couldn't offer your hands-on support?
At first, it was, you go through the motions of feeling quite disappointed, feeling like you're letting them down in some way. But then also understand, I think everyone right now is understanding that they need to protect themselves as well. And I think this is a big part of your training as well, is really learning to look after ourselves. And so, having all of these different thought processes going on at the same time, but then really sort of adapting and thinking, okay, how am I personally going to embrace these unexpected elements, the fact that things are changing day by day and we don't know what tomorrow looks like. And one of my clients wasn't able to have her partner with her in the birth space, and so each day we were looking at these elements, and so I just knew that I had to stay as calm and aligned as possible for my clients in order to give them the confidence. As so many people are talking about right now, there is a collective fear, and it's really hard not to get wrapped up into that. And So whilst they're already dealing with a lot of fears that were coming up for them, this added another layer on top. So whilst we disarmed a number of those fears, actually this, and it wasn't necessarily around the birth, it was around relatives, or just sort of what that might look like if their partner wasn't able to go in with them. And so really for myself, it involved a lot of personal work as well, and being able to integrate quite a bit of the tools that I've developed through doing the training. A lot of body practices, a lot of moving that fear through my own body, so that when it came to being in the presence, albeit virtual presence, of my clients, that I could offer them that calm, that support that they were looking for, and to remind them of how to find that themselves, within themselves.
Romy, you're making me so happy right now, because one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is, if you can't be there like physically, you have to be there like energetically in some way, right? So you have to, and we talk a lot about in the training about like holding the tone in your body. Now we talk about it mostly in the context of when you walk into the birthing room, you want your body to be like flowing with oxytocin flow and energy flow and like pleasure, because the birthing field is contagious. And so that's a big part of the training, is really training our bodies to be able to hold that no matter what's going on, no matter what fears come up. And now that we're transitioning into like a non-physical realm, I feel like those skills are more important than ever before, because now we're in this birthing field that's not in a physical space, but that we can still connect to each other in a virtual way. And I think there's this like suspicion maybe that, or this fear or this doubt that, we can be effective supporting others virtually. And I would love for you to speak to that. Like, did you feel like you were able to be effective with your clients virtually?
I was so surprised by how present I felt in that moment. And with one of my clients in particular, she had a 58-hour-long labor. And for most of that, she was in her own home. And I knew that the hospitals wanted to keep people at home for as long as possible, the medical staff. And so it got to the second night that she'd been in labor, and her partner was exhausted. She was exhausted, but he needed to go and sleep. And she said, I'm okay with the daytime, but the night times I feel quite alone and I'm scared. I'm a bit daunted by the nighttime. And I said, you know what, I'll stay awake with you, and I'll be on Zoom, and I'll be right there with you, and so you won't be alone. And it came to the evening, and her husband said, yeah, I'm going to go up to bed now. I just need to rest a little bit. And so he set up an iPad for her in the space that she was in. And I'd already kind of gone and prepared and showered and got into cozy clothes, thinking this could be a long night ahead. Lit a candle, set up a little sort of sacred space, which I'd done for the previous birth as well. And I carry my, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a little pregnant goddess, which I got when I was in Bali with Robin Lim and Deborah Pascali Bonaro, and she comes with me to births. So I just sort of set up the space, and then I sat down with her, and I entered into that space with her. The lighting was really low, but I could make her out, and she had candles lit. She had a blanket that every time she contracted, she sort of opened it up like a butterfly wings, and she sort of found the position that she needed. And then when it was over, she went into her rest mode, and she just curled up in her blanket. And there was this sort of rhythm and flow throughout. And what had been quite an inconsistent rhythm became really lovely and consistent. And I absolutely felt that flow, that oxytocin flow. And I breathed with her, and occasionally spoke. She sort of found the voice quite comforting. But really, I just left her to breathe and to move and to circle her hips. occasionally we laughed as well. There were some moments that just seemed appropriate and helped. But I really got totally lost in that whole experience, and I didn't feel for one moment that there was a screen and miles apart between us. So yeah, I think that sort of bridge between the energetic support and the physical support, really it sort of blurs, and we've discussed it, but not sort of when one of your senses is taken away from you, and in this case it's the touch, really it's sort of the other senses compensate, and sounding is a really important thing, and the voice just adds so much comfort, and the movement as well, and just reminding her of certain touches, and so many different elements, just breathing together was incredibly hypnotic for her, but also for me, and so it was very special.
It was so beautiful. I feel like I could feel myself transported there. It's amazing, like the sensations that we can feel even when you're recounting the story. And I could really feel in your words how your body was so deeply there with her, how you were like feeling the birthing process within your own space, even though you weren't physically with her. So I'm curious about, like, I know we've been working a lot about over the past year, and in terms of like connecting to sensations in the body, learning to feel, learning to expand that sense within you. I'm wondering how you feel that supported you in this experience.
Well, when I first started the training, I really felt a disconnect, especially with my womb space, but really with my whole body. I didn't truly know how to feel and feel into sensation, and that's something that's developed over the course of the training, and it's been hugely expanding for me, and just sort of led me to places that I just never thought that I would be. And it's just felt so nourishing for my body. I knew that I needed it before, but I didn't know how to reach it. So the body practices have played a huge part in that. And even just breathe, sending the breath to different parts of the body, sending the breath to the womb space. And that has massively helped me, as well as that idea and that notion, as we were talking about before, of contraction and expansion. So before I would have felt resistance in the body, but it would get stuck there. And now I have the tools to be able to move through that, knowing that there is an expansion on the other side, knowing that it's sort of leading to this personal growth, both in a sort of physical way and in an emotional way as well. And I've really felt that. So now, if I do feel that stuck energy, and sort of particularly in this time when I've been supporting mothers through this moment, is to really sort of remind myself of, okay, actually I can dance, or I can move through this, or I can breathe through this. And having those tools has just had such a huge impact. And in the early days of the course, when I was sort of sitting physically with mothers in labor, even just starting to close my eyes and start to move in a way that felt very instinctive to me, and yet to sort of stay very aligned, that felt like a huge step forward. And then in these last few weeks, I felt like I've reached another level of really being able to integrate a lot of different elements from the course.
Amazing. And in what ways has it made you a better doula? I mean, I know you touched on some of them, but like, how has it helped you in your doula work?
I think on the educational side, it's been brilliant to be able to actually communicate not just what's happening to the mother's body during pregnancy and during labor on a sort of physiological level, but also to be able to explain like what the role of the hormones is playing, and how they can also feel into the body, and what that is doing for them. So being able to explain that to them has been one major element, but then actually getting them to practice and to feel into it themselves and to experience their own expansions and their own personal growth has been so rewarding. And I think it just feeds back into how you can continue to progress, and just having a much deeper level of connection with these clients, and being able to share the rituals with them, share the rhythms. I think because the training really gets us as practitioners to experience it for ourselves first and foremost, and then to send it out to our clients, it really means that we're able to connect with what the client is feeling as well. So we're on that, very personal journeys, but we're on it together. Yeah. And delving into these things and expressing our own vulnerabilities, and then the strength that can blossom out of that. And that's been really sort of special to be able to share that experience with them.
Thank you so much for articulating that, because I think especially in this time, all those things are so important to really be able to feel. I think practicing right now for ourselves as birth workers, and especially for our expectant moms, is a must. And sometimes I think about, okay, well, I think one of the things that we see a lot is there's too much like mental information being processed for our expectant moms, but not enough body practices. And in this time, I'm hoping that, obviously nobody wants this pandemic, but I'm hoping that like sort of the contraction of it, like the fear of it, of what's going to happen, will really press people to devote themselves to practicing and committing to creating that within their bodies to support them in labor.
Absolutely. I think that this, for a lot of people, and not for everybody, and I appreciate that, but for a lot of people, it's given them the opportunity to slow down a little bit, especially mothers nearing the end of their pregnancy, when there's still that temptation to do quite a lot. And we're being forced into this being state. And, both for clients, but also for me as a doula, I now can't do as much, but just being is really precious, and I'm realizing the value of that. But for those mothers who are preparing, I think it's, yes, the practicing is really essential, and not just sort of trying to get all the information into their brain, but integrating that with what that can feel like in the body, and how moving through different emotions and sensations can really open up so much for them. And both of the clients recently and the client who couldn't have her partner with her, they were all dealing with different unexpected elements that we always expect in birth for there to be an element that we can't control, and for to really try and remain as flexible as possible. But I think in this climate now, it's sort of even more so. And so being able to practice, being able to really feel into the body, but also to then reach that innate wisdom that is there, and to trust. And I think that's what I've noticed just in these past few weeks, the clients, both who have just given birth and the ones who are about to in this month, I've noticed this real trust forming, and they've dealt with the unexpected elements so beautifully, and with so much openness, and really embracing it. So that's been really special to see.
It's so inspiring. It's really just so inspiring to hear that this is possible, right? I think for anyone that's watching, whether you're an expectant mom, whether you're a birth worker, to know that despite everything that's going on, you can still have a very connected birth experience, and you can have the support you want, even if it's not in the way that you thought it might look. Yeah. I'm curious, Romy, if you have any advice for other doulas on working virtually, or anything that you want them to know, or you want to share?
I think really in the preparation, we've said it already, but just that is so key, and really feeling like you're giving your clients as much time as you can to just build that confidence and build that knowing within themselves. and really the screen doesn't stop you from doing doing the things you normally would. I mean, I'm a pregnancy yoga teacher as well, so I end up on the floor showing different positions, and I'm still doing that. I found an exercise ball in the gym, and so I sort of borrowed that, and I'm still rolling about on the floor and doing all those things, and I just angle my screen and I show them, and then I get them to practice, you know, the couples to practice alongside me. So they're feeling into, oh, does that feel good? Is that the right spot? And then usually there's an, yeah, that feels really good. And we get that moment, so that then when it comes to the birth itself, they know how it should feel. And I think just really trying to disarm any fears that are there. It's working through it with your clients, and understanding that, and for the mothers that are there, just really becoming conscious. I think for so much of this, it's about being really conscious of your patterns, of your behaviors, of your fears, and then addressing them. And you can do that together. And I think just the ritualistic element of it all, just knowing that that's all within all of us, and we can share it, and it can be this sacred space. And I think there are so many ways, and I know that Mary last week talked about it as well, of just even things like lighting candles and just setting up our space, and just then entering into it and just finding that rhythm. I think a lot of it is about finding the rhythm, and I felt totally in tune with the women that I've supported, and helping them to stick to that rhythm as well.
One last question, I promise, even though I feel like I could ask you 5,000 more. How did you come to trust that what you were feeling in the moment while you were supporting birth was correct? Right? Because you're not there. So I know you're watching on a screen, but like really what you're talking about is like trusting your feeling space, like trusting like the energy that you're feeling in your body, the sensations in your body. How did you actually trust that it was true, that it was accurate?
I mean, I think it's always a difficult one, you know, especially I'm thinking of the example of knowing when to wake up my client's husband to say, now is the time to go into the hospital. Now, that's a difficult point for us as doulas in general to understand. And I was sort of watching her, and I couldn't really see her, but I was listening to the contractions. I was keeping time of them. So there's the sort of practical element of it. But also, I think, you know, acknowledging the thoughts that come up, but then really again feeling in, and if it's coming from a very sort of heart-centered space, and just now being able to listen to that instinct, which I don't think I've always had that ability to do, but really sort of tuning into that helped guide me through it. And just this sort of feeling that rose up in the body, and knowing, you know, I think one of the big things for me is being able to distinguish now what contraction feels like and what resistance feels like, and where I feel that in my body, and then what the flow feels like. And I think at those moments where I've known, okay, I think this is now the right time to go, or the right decision, it's because it's just come from a feeling of flow. And I think that's really what's guided me. So it's still, you know, it's still a slightly nerve-wracking thing. I was worried that they were going to get to the hospital and then be sent home again. But no, it felt like the right thing. The same with another client who was in a, you know, she had an unexpected element of bleeding happening quite early on, and her partner saying, you know, what should we do? And just being able to just again feel very aligned, and take a moment to breathe and to listen into the body, and then to just empower them again with that confidence that they know, and actually in many cases they've got that trust in themselves, and they know what feels right. And I think through the preparation, you empower them with that knowing, with that ability to really sort of go inwards and to know that they've got it within them to be able to make these decisions that are right for them, that there are no such thing as right choices, but just choices that are right for them individually. And I think that gives a lot of confidence. So you're sort of working together on a lot of these elements.
This is so good to hear, and it's so inspiring. And the message that I really, really want people to hear is that the support is more necessary now than ever. So, you know, studies on doula care have always shown that the outcomes are incredible when you have that support. You know, I love that quote, if a doula were a drug, it would be unethical not to use it, right? Because the outcomes are so much better when you have that support. And I just really want everyone to know that that's needed now more than ever, and that it's completely possible. And I really appreciate you, Romy, for coming and sharing your story and sort of like helping to break it down so people could really understand that not only it works really well, it's really powerful, and that we can do this.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure to share. And really, I didn't feel any barriers to being able to support. And I think that however the birth plays out, whatever the circumstances, I think just the clients knowing that they've got support there if they need it is really comforting. So I'm glad to and feel it's a real honor to be able to still offer this support during this time, albeit in a totally different capacity.
Which also means, expectant mamas, if you want Romy support, you do not have to be in the UK. So what's your, like, how can people reach you? I will tag you for sure so people can find you on Facebook, but you have a website that you want to share that I could also add?
At the moment, my website is in construction. So mostly it's via Instagram. So I'm Romy_Finbow doula.
Okay. So I'll add your Instagram handle then as well to this post.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Medea.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you do. It's been a really revolutionary training for me. I'm not quite at the end, but it's been so special. And I feel very privileged to have been able to do it.
Yeah, no, you actually don't get to go anywhere, because even when you graduate, you can come into like subsequent trainings for however long you want. So I take offense to anyone saying that they're ever done, because we're always growing, and I adore you so much, and I hope that you'll always stay in the circle. I think we need each other. I think we need each other in this time to really like hold the vision for the highest outcome of birth, of humanity, especially now more than ever before, to really have each other to hold that vision with. It's so important. And yeah, so I'm actually going to be opening registration for the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner training for one day only tomorrow. It was sort of like a blooper on my part, but I'm going to honor it because it wasn't supposed to open until April 20th, but tomorrow, April 10th, I'm going to open registration for one day if you want to take a peek at all the fantastic learning and practices that Romy has been doing within our group, and are interested in that. You can check that out at ecstaticbirth.pro. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you again, Romy, for coming and sharing. Lots of love to everybody. Bye.
Bye.